Well, hello. I'm Howler Mouse. Welcome to the Howler Mouse channel. We're in my comic book room, and I got a lot of light on me. Hold on. It may have to stay that way. So, anyway, try one more time. Thanks for joining me today. We are broadcasting in the past for you people in the future watching on December 21st, 2025, approximately 4:15 in the afternoon. And just a couple of days before Christmas, guys, a couple of days before Christmas. I think I'm ready. I hope you're ready because it doesn't matter. It's happening. Now is the time to just put yourself in the moment and realize this is happening. I got my presents wrapped. I have the tree up. We have a Jersey Mike's that opened up in the area. I got a decent sub today. I went to church and saw the Christmas play this morning. And now I've decided to do a little show because I like to spend a little time with you guys out there, especially around the holidays. So right on cue, John has popped in. How you doing, John? Make sure you participate in the chat. And as always, that is my signal to make sure that you guys have subscribed. You have hit the bell so you know when I do these shows, when I'm about to actually do some videos with Christmas vacation coming up. To comment, subscribe, thumbs up, share it. All those things are great because this is a channel where we actually do talk about comics, where we actually read our comics. And we also do many other things here, guys. 15 years on YouTube. What is this? 48 years reading and collecting comics. And I've actually been able to, in the midst of all the Christmas shopping and running around and everything like that, I have a small, humble haul. Now, it's very important to go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell because I've felt a few of my Christmas presents upstairs that are wrapped and stuff, and I think it's safe to say that I have an epic collection or two that that's been gifted to me. I'll be real interested to see they are. So there'll probably be another Christmas haul video coming up. I also like to do a topical video and stuff, right? Before we get to these comics, one of the things that's really amazed me is the rage that I've seen online. When I jump online, I continue. I love getting these reports on my phone. I continue to be able to be using my phone less and less for social media, and more for things such as when I'm driving to be listening to audiobooks, old radio shows, Jim Cornette, Dutch Mantel, wrestling podcast, if you will, and things like that. And I tell you what, it makes a huge difference. You get more reading done. If you can catch people not being on their phone, you have I don't know, a bit more conversation, if you will, and a lot more focus. My focus is a lot better on a few things. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a personal thing to check out. But one of the things that I do see is this rage against James Gunn and this calling for the Snyderverse to come back. Just to get the context in, it looks like Netflix, if they have not already done it, will be buying the WB. People seem to have missed the announcement that WB said that they're going to leave people to do what they have been doing, which includes Gunn with his DC Universe movies. And there's this big online thing where people are putting out false information, fake posts, and they continue to just try to tear down the James Gunn DC stuff and act like and say things such as Snyder gets to do his universe, bringing Snyder back. And I'm just kind of shaking my head like, do these people not realize how much time has gone by since Man of Steel and everything that has happened? Do you guys not remember all the rage you had against some of the despicable things the Flash actor was doing? The actor who played Cyborg, how he was a whiny bitch online and making false accusations to try to save his career. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that have happened that people seem to forget. And as somebody who has, I think I do own all except for one, the last Aquaman movie. I think I own all physical media. I own all of the Snyderverse movies. I own all three cuts of Watchmen by Snyder, and I have his Day of the Dead and his 300. So I'm a Snyder guy, but I'm thinking if that's a topical video you guys would like to see, or maybe a live show, to let me know. And I could probably get a few people on here also if we want to have a roundtable about it to discuss Snyderverse versus Gunn and things. That might be fun. I think that would be fun. Okay, so with that said, I think it's time to kind of jump in here. And first, what we're going to do is I want to show you a few things that I've read again or read for the first time right off the bat. And then we have a very humble, but I think powerful stack of books that I've gotten over the last week. Okay, so we'll give people a few more minutes to get in here before we look at the newer stuff, or new to me. These are back issues, if you will, some of them. Anyway, so the other night, one of the books I acquired made me go back to look and make sure that I had a first print of The Killing Joke. Batman, written by Alan Moore, The Killing Joke, one of those staples of the greatest Batman / Joker stories of all time. And I kind of doubted myself. I'm like, do I have a first print? And I ended up going through the boxes and I couldn't find it. And then I finally found it. It was in the Alan Moore box, but for some reason it was the third time going through that Alan Moore box. I have 5 Alan Moore boxes. Through that Alan Moore box before I found it, which amazed me. And as I was going through there, I have multiple copies of this, but this is a beat up reader copy. This is the one that I used to keep out to read of this book until and I still haven't opened this until I got all of the Alan Moore Superman stories in trade over here. That whole section there's Alan Moore stuff, right? And it's just the old reliable Superman Annual number 11 from 1985. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, harbinger of what was to come with Watchmen, because this is the creative team. The creative team before that did this, for the man who has everything, which is this. It's that famous story. Alan Moore did a few Superman stories, and they all just happen to be classics, every one of them. This was stuck with all my Superman Alan Moore stories smushed together right there with his Supreme stuff from the 90s. And the story holds up. The magic of things that hold up with Alan Moore that just amaze me, it's the setting, okay? I think his Swamp Thing stuff is 99% timeless because it doesn't show a lot of technology. It shows the swamp in nature. You know what I'm saying? Nature doesn't really change. It's green, okay? You know what I mean? A swamp looks like a swamp 100 years ago, 200 years ago. The swamp still looks like a swamp. You follow me? So by not having the technology and avoiding a lot of the fashion trends, sadly, there are hippies scattered throughout the Swamp Thing run. This is also timeless because it takes place in Antarctica. Antarctica 100 years ago was white. This looks white. And of course, it's the 50s, 60s Silver Age Superman, the setting of the Fortress of Solitude, but we get away from that because we get to see Krypton. A lot of the story takes place in Krypton, even though it is a dream sequence, if you will. Superman used to have a lot of imaginary stories and dream sequences where we would get what if stories. If you would, what if Superman married Lois? What if he married Lois Lane? What if they had kids and things like that? And that's kind of what I think Alan Moore was inspired by because for his birthday, Mongol has sent Superman a black mercy plant that will feed on you until you die, but in return, it gives you your greatest fantasy. In Superman's fantasy that he was living is that he was on a Krypton that never blew up, while Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are fighting Mongol and trying to get the black mercy off of him, right? And then it gets quite political. It ends up being Superman is fighting to get out of it. And that's when Krypton, his world starts falling apart. And he has children. He has a child. And, he has to give up that child when he realizes it is what it is. Holds up. I have probably read this story easily 50 times over the years. And it is still fresh and as relevant as ever. Hey, Tim, the comic collector is here. Great to see you, Tim. Roger69501. Hello, Professor. Hello, Roger. And Merry Christmas to both of you guys. Great to see you. And here's Paolo coming in. Paolo just reread that story. Not only the imaginary stories, but also based on the tales where Superman time travels to Krypton in the past. Yeah, absolutely. It is Superman. Alan Moore embraces what Superman was all about. Okay, guys, great to see everybody and Merry Christmas. Now, I want to show you some of the stuff that I've gotten over the last week here, right? And all of the stuff I pretty cheap. I got for pretty cheap. And I'm, pretty proud of it. But like I said, I'm a reader. So this is stuff that I wanted to read or things that I'm finishing up. And there's something here for fun here, right? So the first thing I've got is that this is a seventh printing of this, but really, can we have too many printings? I do have if you guys have just jumped in, you heard me tell the whole story of how I dug this out because I bought something and I was like, I really want to check out and see if that is a first printing. And it said first printing inside, so I do have it. But this is a fifth printing. Now, there are people who are getting the Killing Joke, guys. Batman the Killing Joke. I have seen people over the years, they want every printing, and there are differences on the covers according to what they are saying. And I'm trying to think, I can't think of a YouTuber in particular who's doing this. I've seen this online, Facebook groups, maybe an Instagram or two. But this is a fifth printing, and every printing has the logo coloring is different. It also says inside the cover, it will tell you what printing it is. This is I think it's fifth or seventh. I think this is seventh. But what I really want to check out and see if it's true is supposedly you can look at the cuff link, and the cuff link is supposed to be a little bit different on each printing. I don't know if that's true, but I think I'm going to like get a couple printings up and check it out, see if that's true. Or I could just do a Google search. But I'm old school. I like to have the comics in my hands. I like to do the research myself. I think it's fun. I think that stuff's kind of fun. And I have a first printing. I think I have a third printing. The third printing, I think I bought when it came out. Then I'm trying to think. I have the deluxe edition where Brian Bolland got to do what he wanted to do. I had a chance to buy an absolute Killing Joke, but I didn't really see the point, even though I just said, can you really have too many of these books? But I gotta tell you, this thing is just the artwork alone. This book is just a masterpiece. Yes, Alan Moore has gone back and said that he's not too proud of this book and stuff, but it doesn't matter. The mood is set, the skill is still there. Brian Bolland spent years drawing this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I do prefer both colorings. Brian Bolland was very upset with the coloring of it, even though I think John Higgins, I think he did a fantastic job. So I've been able to compare Brian Bolland with the deluxe edition re-release, which is probably right behind me as I'm sitting here talking about it. Yeah. Yes, so I've seen both of them, and there are pages that I think John Higgins nailed it. It actually worked in the story better. But then again, I can understand when you see the lighter tone of colors that Bolland is using to where like he probably thought it was grotesque, right? So I don't know. I'm fine with the original and actually give John Higgins just a tad more credit than Bolland on it. I think there are things in there that work better psychologically, like Barbara Gordon getting shot, but right before she gets shot, we see Joker in her doorway, and he's a bit more sinister because he's colored to be more in the dark before he steps into the room. Things like that. Oh man, everybody's popping in here. Great. So anyway, that's something I bought. Got a great price on that. Hillberry 8878. Hey Tim and all, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, sir. Watching, listening to from my drawing table, a perfect Sunday for drawing. I will be drawing tonight as well. That's what my plan is. Just playing around. And I'm actually going to try to do some comic book art just to play around, see what I can come up with. Hillberry goes by. Hilla Library goes by. My favorite Killing Joke print is the neon pink second print. I want to get that. To me, pink can be a punk color in my eyes. Black and red, pink, punk colors in me, which is the one I nabbed as a kid at the comic shop display stand when I came out. Oh, that's fantastic. Tim, the comic book collector, I'm surprised how cheap you can still get a first print for. Hey, you get that hustle going. You can probably get it cheaper than you would think. It has such a that book has a bit of a stigma to it now for people of a younger generation that it's easier to get it away from them if you catch the right person. Hey, Phantom Blot. Anyone here have any of the Gold Key Walt Disney Phantom Blot books, 1965 ish? I don't. Palo, Killing Joke is a reader. Killing Joke, a reader's comic. Most people are happy with any copy, won't seek the collectability aspect of a first printing. Right, right. It needs to be read and reread. It's fantastic. And all the adaptations that they've done one adaptation of that, the straight to DVD video with a prequel that was unnecessary. I really can't believe DC, the powers that be, or who worked on it, really dropped the ball with adapting the adaptation of that story. All right, I've read loads of Flan and Blot stories. I'm pretty sure most were made by Italy. All right, Ponadius is here. Ponaditis. Ponaditis. I have a Killing Joke first print hardcover. Now there are like now there are like 15 printings. That's what I'm saying. The book, it lives on. With all those printings, it was a success because not because it was a great story. Uh, Hellaberry. I do have a 60s Phantom Block Gold Key. Love it. That is so random. All right, cool. All right, now this I got for $1. This was a steal, right? And at one point I had the first, I think it was number 55. From 55 to 60, these books were hot around 94, I think. And then the guy jumped on Profit. I wasn't really into it because number one, it was Moon Knight. My Moon Knight, I like the original monster hunter that he was, the werewolf hunter, right? And I didn't really, I don't dislike Moon Knight. I think he has a great look and everything. And as I've said many times, the Moon Knight that I want to see is the one from Universe X by Kruger and Alex Ross. That future story that's not really, it's not canon, but basically they revealed that Mark Spector actually died in the pyramid, and the dust that went into his body, pretty much he's a walking mummy. He's an undead creature walking through this earth. I like that is a great take. Those Egyptian ties, the whole idea of the horror aspect of the mummy. I just loved it. I'd love to see that. But getting back to this, early 90s, we had the Image Comics guys and the styles of comics. Everyone was going for a Liefeld look, a bit of a McFarlane look, big, sloppy little hands, pouches, big spikes, and everything like that, and sort of like that. Then all of a sudden, this dude, Stephen Platt, comes out with a very, very similar style to McFarlane. And it was really great. Over the years, I've had 2, 3 issues of number 55, which I found out is a $110 book, guys. Who knew? Who knew? It's so great that I document this stuff on YouTube because it's probably 10 years ago that I had it. But anyway, I saw number 58 for $1, and I'm like, well, how could I not? So he did 55 and 60. He signs everything splat. These books were huge. Go back and look at your Wizards top 10, guys. Your Wizard books will show you that this guy was hot. He cooled off, and all of a sudden, these books seem to have kept some form of collectability because the next thing I know, the guy's doing profit at Image. Other than that, I don't know anything he's done, and I'm sure he's been out there. But it blows my mind that this is now 31 years old. 31 years old. So to find a Stephen Platt book for $1, I'm like, from Marvel at Moon Knight, I'm like, yeah, I think I'll grab that. I'll grab that. So if you are a Stephen Platt fan or know where he's at, what he's done, is he doing anything? Let me know. I think he kind of killed his career jumping over to Image, even though he was probably getting paid better. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, maybe artistically it was better that he went, or maybe he was getting paid better. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So, just to kind of show, we'll take a break there. I want to show you something else I've read. I bought this a few weeks ago, right? I had issue 3 and 4, 1 and 2. I think I had 1 and 2, needed 3 and 4, but this completes my Age of Apocalypse collection, right? Age of Apocalypse, it's 30 years ago, and it was one of the first things that I feel like Marvel did where they were finally moving forward from the Chris Claremont stuff. Chris Claremont had been off the books for about 4 years, I believe, at that time, and they had just gutted and pillaged everything and just a year and a half, 2 years that he had built for 17 years. And they finally did something where they kind of went forward, even though it was still Days of Future Past is if you wanted. But it was still original. They pulled in a lot of anime and manga influences with Roger Cruz and the Campbell Boys and Steve Scorsese here and stuff like that. And they ended up having two cables, but I had X-Men 1 through 4. Jeff Loeb, Jeff Loeb, who's a great writer. He comes up with some great ideas. Every now and then he can stick to a landing. So I sat down and I read these, and I was able to read them in the context that this is an alternative timeline. And surprising, the big surprise with this book is that this version of Cable, Nate, ends up coming to the Marvel Universe proper, and his book continues and stuff, right? But I found these unreadable. The Scorsese artwork, cool every now and then, but they're just unreadable, man. I was just like, even in context with the Age of Apocalypse, right? So with that said, I will be putting this with the Age of Apocalypse box, put the set together. And as this was a series. There was an Alpha and Omega book in books, and in between we had four issues. We'll call them a bunch of mini series where like Excalibur became Caliber X for 4 issues, right? They just sort of stopped the entire line of X-Men comics and gave us 4 issues, and then picked right up with the series after Age of Apocalypse stopped, everything, right? So yeah, I'm like, I have no emotional feel or nostalgic ties or anything with the Age of Apocalypse. Scattered throughout, there are some pretty cool things, but overall, I'm gonna be happy to part with them at some point and probably turn that money back into buying other things, right? So if you're an Age of Apocalypse fan, let me know. Like I said, I think it was one of the best things they did post Claremont, right? So this next guy here, right? We really need to start celebrating our comic book artists while they're alive. Okay. We've taken a few hits, and personally, I have taken a few hits. I feel like because I actually met some of these people and slash and or grew up on their work. And I often comment in real life to my friends and things like that. We're like, isn't it just so what would you call that? Isn't it so bizarre that some people that provided you entertainment that you grew up with, writers, artists, musicians, band members, and things like that, and for some reason their deaths seem to impact you more than people you actually knew in the real world? It blows my mind. There's got to be a phenomenon for that, a psychological reason, evolutionary reason, something. Why? But it always feels like we're a little bit more empty. The world is just a little bit more empty without them creating and putting such something positive out there. You know what I mean? Um, I don't understand it, right? And I'm kind of concerned. I'm a little concerned because Sergio Argonis has been with us for such a long time, and the man is a workhorse. I have mentioned over the last few weeks, there's a documentary that is on Tubi. I believe it was on Amazon Prime. It is now on YouTube for free called We Went Mad. And it's a documentary about Mad Magazine. It gives you a little comic book history, educational comics becoming EC Comics, the Kurtzman family, the Senate hearings, and then we get into Al Feldstein and Spy versus Spy and Don Martin and a little bit of Sergio in there. He's in there for just a little bit, and pictures of them traveling the world on vacations and things like that. And that got me thinking. I was like, oh man. And I missed out meeting Sergio, man. I really did. Had a chance to go to Heroes Con to see him. The flights got messed up. And then somehow Sheldon Drum, who runs Heroes Con, was able to get on the phone, network the planes to where they ended up landing from, I think they were say they were in California. I'm not saying they were in LA, but from California to Charlotte, North Carolina, got them there at the last minute for the weekend. I woke up to find out he was there, and it was too late. I was like, no, I'd already made other plans when I heard Sergio and Mark Evanier weren't coming. So I have a whole box of Sergio stuff. I have tons of Mad magazines with Sergio stuff. I have Plop magazine with Sergio in it. I have the Boogeyman. I have the Blair Witch satire. And I'm sure I have more. I have the Sergio destroys DC, Sergio massacres Marvel. I have pinups in Detective 400 or something. The very last page, I think we have a Sergio Batman spread. Right, he's everywhere in this stuff. Right, I have a the Ramones. Right, my Weird Tales of the Ramones, which is three CDs, one DVD, and inside we get a comic full of underground artists and stuff. Sergio's in here. You know what I mean? It ties to the Ramones, right? So, Sergio has worked on the spirit. Sergio has told tales about how when he was a kid, he would get up early on Sundays, grab somebody's paper off their stoop that was delivered, hurry up and open it up so he could read those 7 pages of the spirit and put it back because he was a poor kid. You know what I'm saying? Sergio, who is just, it is what it is. He is who he is and stuff, right? So I'm 4 issues closer to completing my Gru run, right? And I read one or two of these, man, and it's great. I mean, you sit down, it's a fulfilling read. There are no huge events going on, but Sergio is so fast with the way he draws. If you want to see him draw, Stan Lee came out with those videos, those VHS tapes back in the day of him talking to artists. He did one with Rob Liefeld, one with McFarlane, Jim Davis, and he got Sergio in there. And I remember watching Sergio. I watched Sergio's tape back in the 90s. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I remember watching the tape back in the 90s where he drew an elephant and he drew it so fast. Stan Lee was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And tell people you have to learn how to draw an actual elephant first. And he was like, I just draw the elephant. I mean, it's just, man, it was just so funny. You know what I mean? Like, Sergio was he wasn't taking shit from Stan Lee, but he wasn't being, what do you call it? He wasn't getting in his face. He wasn't being, what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a C. Oh man, I can't think. I watched too much wrestling. All those words have gone out of my head. He didn't lock up with them. What I mean? Anyway. So anyway, these are issues 109. This is the last of a multi-part story. Every now and then, most Gru stories are single issues, but every now and then we would get a 4-parter, and I believe we had a 2-parter there for a while. And then Sergio, right, started out. I mean, he Gru the Wanderer is still a barbarian who loves cheese, with his dog Rufio, Ruferto, yeah, whatever it is, right? But we still get some fantastic stuff where the funny guy, Sergio Argonis, you find out every now and then he can draw some scary stuff. We got a bunch of mummies here. Just waiting on him. This reminds me of if Gru was just walking around and didn't see them, this would remind me of a Joe Kubert ambush cover from some war magazines in the 70s. Gru, Gru dies in this one apparently, and he's crying at his own grave. So I can't wait to see what this one is. Uh, Number 111. Now this has got to be, if I was going to give out an award for the most dramatic cover of 2025 that I bought, even though this is from about 1994, this is it. That has to be the most dramatic cover. I am actually thinking about framing this. Look at this. We have a sense of theater from Sergio Aragonis, the mad guy. You know what I mean? Look at that. This is fantastic, right? So not only do you get Gru, almost a complete story, something that you can't fly through and stuff like that, but you get little shorts with the characters, and he also provides little games that he explains himself how you're supposed to play. He has he has these little things where he'll do Gru walking up on some soldiers and then getting into a fight and having the last panel, and you'll get 12 panels, and he challenges you to figure out in what order the panels are supposed to go. And then you get little shorts like Gru. I don't know if it's pages or filling in pages or something. See if this one has one. It's usually after the letters page. Yeah. A 1-page little Gru story. And I got to tell you, back in the day when we still had these, we had one of the most entertaining letter sections ever in Grugrams, right? So this is all complete. I mean, you get, if you want just a comic book to read where you get a satisfying story, and it's consistent. The consistency was throughout the entire 120 issue run. In my opinion, thus far, I'm getting closer and closer to having all 120 issues. I have number 1, I have a bunch of issues in between, and I have 120. 120 apparently, even though it books for $4, it sells for over $100 on eBay because of a 1995 low print run. Who knows? But they ended up going to Dark Horse and Image and things with Gru. But he also went to Eclipse in, I think it was Pacific Comics before that. So Gru's been around 10 years at Marvel through their Epic line. Great stuff. Great stuff. Oh, Tim Merritt is here. What's up, Merritt? Good to see you guys. Tim Merritt, it's been a while. He, I think, God, 10 years. Was it over 10 years ago you started making videos and looks like you're sticking your toe back in the water here? Argonis is a master. Yeah, we need to appreciate him while he's here. Barbarian behavior, Phantom Blot. That's right, the Phantom Blot. I love cheese dip too. I do as well. I have a bowl in the refrigerator to heat up after this. That and some blackberry wine. Okay. Now, I did not read everything that Dark Horse put out of Star Wars when they had the licensing. And I'm trying to see if I have the book here, right? But I do have a book, and I bet it's over in that shelf with my Doctor Who stuff. But anyway, I have a book where Dark Horse took a timeline. They have a book to show you how to read chronologically in the Star Wars universe all the books they put out, the Tales of the Jedi and all the legacy books, everything, right? They actually had a plan. You can go through this book and they'll show you the timeline and it shows you what books to read from Dark Horse. And I really wish I could remember off the top of my head how long Dark Horse had the licensing of Star Wars, and because it was a while. And I remember flipping through some things, and I'm such a purist. I'm like, if George Lucas didn't write it, do we really want to count it? And they came up with and I'm sure I wasn't the only purist, but George Lucas, they said that everything goes through LucasArts. At least George Lucas is at least aware or kind of gives it a rub if it's all right to go through and stuff. I don't know if I believe that stuff, right? So I read a few Star Wars things that I liked. I still have them, some of his Empire books. Uh, I still think some of the first Dark Horse stuff, would have made a better sequel than what I've heard for the next trilogy after Return of the Jedi, things like that. But anyway, I started wandering back. Sorry, guys. Anyway, but one of the books that I consistently was excited to see, I would find at the Food City grocery store like 25 years ago, right? When it was still on a stand of magazines in the grocery store across the road from where I live, right? And I actually do believe the first one I bought, they had Sam Jackson playing Mace Windu. Sam Jackson was also in Pulp Fiction, of course, right? So we got a little bit of a crossover there that was hilarious. Of they were sitting in the diner that you saw in Clone Wars, I think, right? And we had Sam Jackson, Mace Windu, and we had a touch set with Yoda and things like that. And we got a little bit of a Pulp Fiction feel to a very funny Star Wars story, right? Then you had Garth Ennis come out and do Troopers and stuff like that, right? So anyway, what I'm getting at, things like that, is that I was able to pick up Star Wars Tales number 16. Star Wars Tales is where we get 3 or 4 stories in here, different tones. Some are funny, some are they're just fun. They're not canon. Uh, one of these stories that I'm recalling off the top of my head that a lot of people talked about the most was the one where we had Han Solo and Chewbacca crash, and we get to find out, that people were kind of seeing the Wookiee, and that's where the legend of Bigfoot came from. But somehow I think it tied into the fact that Indiana Jones years later will discover the Millennium Falcon, right? So yeah, they tied Indiana Jones, Han Solo, and Chewbacca crashing on Earth, and they tied it up to where they tied in Indiana Jones with it discovering himself, right? Like, and it felt like it was it was a part of an Indiana Jones movie by the end of the story. Real quick, real solid, just a great concept, great ideas, right? And they played around with different art. They had a lot of great innovative stuff. But yeah, this is probably my favorite Star Wars series. So yeah, I'm kind of chipping away at completing this. Not in a big rush. Not in a big rush. Some of these go for big money, apparently. Some of these are just sitting there waiting for a home in a dollar bin every now and then, right? they'll come across my path. I kind of let the force guide me through to finding these, which is the way it should be, right? So again, I'm really wanting a little bit of feedback. If you guys or some of you guys are old enough here to have read any of these Star Wars tales, let me know if you got a great story. The Garth Ennis Trooper stories, I think that's what it's called. Fantastic. Now, a lot of these you got to be real careful because they have two covers apiece on a majority of the series, right? So you could end up buying the same book twice if you're not aware that there are two covers. You follow me? I almost bought the Garth Ennis one. Mine has a photo of the stormtroopers, three stormtroopers on the cover, and I ran across the B cover, which was drawn. I don't remember what it was. Okay. Oh man, we got some people in here. Okay, let's tell everybody that's popped in here, Merry Christmas. Thanks for popping in. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell. I've already felt one of my presents upstairs. There may be a Christmas haul video or show coming up after Christmas, if not Christmas night. I don't know. We'll see what's going on. I get a few days off of work. So make sure you subscribe, hit the button. And on this video, make sure you thumb it up and share it and stuff, right? Oh, Ponaditas. I'm trying to find all the Star Wars first printing trade paperbacks, 1991, 2012, just the expanded universe. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a very, man, I can just picture that collection, man. If there's I have like almost a complete set of New Universe books. I have almost I think I have all of the Defined Universe books. I kind of consider the Dark Horse stuff part of that dead universe now that Disney said, ignore the expanded universe, even the novels, even though they have pulled from it and stuff like that, right? I'm trying to think if I have any other Dark Horse. I'm sure I have some more other Dark Horse books. I have a box full of Star Wars stuff going back to Marvel, Return to the Jedi and things. Don't have a lot of the actual Marvel Star Wars series, but I did have number one when it came out, because I have some of the treasury editions. That's what I still have. Anyway, now before I showed the last book, okay, one of the things that I always say is part of having a good collection and having a variety in the strength of the reason of the hobby of comic books. I think it's surviving stronger in back issues and through local cons and big cons and grassroots cons and toy cons. And one of the reasons that it's still surviving as a hobby, and it's probably bigger than we know, because YouTube is not the end all be all of collecting comics and reading this stuff, are the back issues. And one of the strengths of comics is the variety out there, right? War comics, romance comics, Marvel comics, Silver Age comics, the eras, the subject matter, and then the licensing, and then the all ages stuff, right? And I got a kick out of this, right? We had cable in 1985 where I lived. And one of the first things, there's actually two things that fascinate me, even though I was 12. It was great to have MTV. I mean, let's face it, I was probably glued to MTV more than anything. But one of the things I absolutely loved was I missed the USA network of the 80s, right? Where we had Captain USA hosting, some B movies and stuff, right? And then we had the US Express on, I think it was Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, expanded every week. We got old 70s Hanna-Barbera comics, right? I got to watch my Captain Caveman again, my Clue Club. This is before Cartoon Network got Boomerang. You follow me here? But also when the other channel that we got that I was just really thought was very cool, and it seems I watched a little bit at one town over at a cousin's house a few times. So I'd got to see Nickelodeon, right? But you would, in the mornings you had Mr. Wizard, right? And then you had Dennis the Menace. And then they would show things throughout the day that was for preschoolers, like the gnome, somebody the gnome. And it looks exactly like this book of gnomes that my stepdad had, explaining gnomes and stuff, right? And then some Japanese stuff, right? And all this stuff like that. But then we got Danger Mouse, 7 o'clock at night, I think is when we got that, Eastern Standard Time. And we got Danger Mouse. My friends, I still watch Danger Mouse. Okay. It's all over streaming. And absolutely love Danger Mouse, right? And then all of a sudden we had a little short called Banana Man, right? He would eat a banana and he was the strongest 10 men, 10 big men. All right. And then all of a sudden they sort of phased it out because there's an episode where we got a vegetarian vampire duck. And all of a sudden Nickelodeon turned around and sort of phased out Danger Mouse, and we got Count Duckula. All right. So this is my third issue of Count Duckula, the series through Marvel Comics. And this is a beat up number one. I'm glad to have it. I have issue 13 that has a Freddy Krueger satire on the cover of it. Excuse me. But the thing about it is that I don't want to sit here and tell you it's a great cartoon. It's a great cartoon if you like the British humor, the very dry humor and stuff, right? He was resurrected from the dead. Count Duckula was, and he was resurrected. And in the spell, they ended up using tomato juice instead of blood, if I remember right. And now we have a vegetarian vampire, if you will, right? So I enjoy these things. I mean, if you're into Carl Barks and Bone and oh my God, Scott Shaw, Captain Carrot, just some fun, books. These are actually pretty good, and they're not dumbed down. You follow what I'm saying? Like they're still for kids. Let's face it. You know what I mean? But this isn't when we dumb things down for kids. Every now and then they would have jokes that sort of like the grown-ups got. You know what I mean? But the kids wouldn't get, right? So yeah, when I saw this, I was like, look at this. It's got a little bend right here. I said, look at that spine stress. I kind of pointed out some flaws there, stuff like that, and I pretty much think I got this for $3. You know what I mean? And I was like, I am never going. I'm cheap when I come to these things, guys. There's got to be a hustle. But every now and then, I was really willing to work for this. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, this is great. So yeah, yeah, I think I'm have my box of my other two Count Duckula books, and I'm probably going to grab this. I'm sure I have it beside some of my Ren and Stimpy. Now, what amazes me is I have seen people over the last 2 months going crazy for Ren and Stimpy books, and I remember a couple of months ago I saw people going crazy for Beavis and Butthead books. Who I think Evan Dorkin wrote some. No, they did Bill and Ted's. Evan Dorkin did Bill and Ted's the Bill and Ted books. But anyway, Beavis and Butthead books and Ren and Stimpy books, I've seen some people go nuts for them here lately. So if you know something I don't know, let me know. So anyway, Ducky Booze, yes, Palo's right on it. Comic Crack is here. Happy Sunday, comic friends. Hey, what's up? Great to see you guys. Great to see you, Crack. Paolo remembers a series called Little Dracula. It was a short. Oh, wait a minute. Someone's talking to Paolo. It is the Phantom Blot. It was a short run cartoon here in Escape for Fox Kids 91, Little Dracula. I saw Fox, whatever's considered Fox Kids. I saw Fox in 91 when I lived in Baltimore for a summer and got to see the Swamp Thing series cartoon. Oh my goodness. All right. And Cayman X. Oh my God. Is that you, Scott? Wait a minute. Cayman? Great to see you if you're who I think you are. Oh man. Now that I've looked at it, yes, I do remember now. I had completely forgotten about Little Dracula. So there's a cartoon to look up here, right? Now this one, I had the Paolo, you're probably there. You probably saw this happen, or at least maybe Jared mentioned it or something, right? So it is no secret that even though I have a disdain and a hate for Booster Gold that runs deep, you know what I'm saying? Um, Deadpool is not in that category. Okay. Deadpool, I can't get into the character because I feel like Ambush Bug did breaking the fourth wall and the joking and the inside jokes and stuff. Ambush Bug did it first. Giffen, Ambush Bug, Robert Lauren Fleming, all of those guys, they did it first. And then we had She-Hulk. She-Hulk broke the fourth wall with John Byrne, and they would call out, she would call out some things on Marvel like a fan would, you know what I mean? An old Marvel fan would on things. There's a Marvel age where she's sitting on the beach and she's got like Fantastic Four number, I don't know what issue it is, maybe 2 or something. I don't know. But anyway, it was announcing the Atlantis Attacks Summer annual crossover, right? And she's sitting there going, Jack Lee and Stan Kirby did it better 25 years ago, and they were like, whoa, hold on. So, she's broke the fourth wall, right? But I do not hate Deadpool. I dig the movies. I look forward to seeing the movies. I have a good time with the movies. And somewhere along some social media, I made a little comment saying that I do not like Deadpool in the comics, but I love the movies. And then Jared sent me a message, said to check out that thread because Fabian Nasenza was like, nobody cares what you think. I was like, that's hilarious. I didn't know what to say. I was like, the co-creator of Deadpool has just called me out. But I had to get this issue. Now, you heard me say that I mentioned Keith Giffen. Keith Giffen also created a character named Lobo, right? So Ambush Bug, Lobo. I'm a Giffen guy, and he's one of the reasons he's one of many reasons that I think we should celebrate our artists and creators and musicians and everything now that you're a fan of. But there's a one particular I heard about this. This was written by Christopher Priest. Joey Cavalera for you old school guys. You know, Christopher Priest is his pen name. He did a great Black Panther run for a lot of people, right? If you don't do this, but he ended up doing a little bit on Deadpool. Now I had this entire series twice. If you go back to my videos, probably in 2010, 11 or something like that, I probably showed the entire series, right? What is this, volume two? The volume two one that started out Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness and stuff, right? But this is issue 41. And I do not know why I do not remember this. Probably because I didn't read the entire series and stuff, right? But I ended up selling it. Deadpool was hot. I've sold this entire series twice and things like that, right? But I decided to keep this issue. I got a fantastic price on this one, right? So this is Deadpool number 41. Now, what is the significance? I have right here, I have the omnibus that has this issue, right? So basically, we have Deadpool in space, and they're talking about a character named Dirty Wolf. And I haven't read it. I just flipped through it to make sure I was remembering this right, right? So there's a bit of me that did remember it, but I don't know why I remembered it. I think I saw the cover and then it kind of came back to me, maybe, or maybe I saw it online somewhere. I don't know, right? So they keep talking about Dirty Wolf, and they keep talking about Dirty Wolf, right? And they get to Dirty Wolf, and you find out that out in space, Dirty Wolf is that's not Lobo with a iron mask, guys. That is not Lobo drawn in Simon Bisley style or John McCree style, guys. But yeah, basically out in space, they have Lobo, prisoner with an iron mask, and it is up to Deadpool to, I guess, save him or something. So yeah, I had to get this, man. You know, a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, totally not. And they even have a panel where we have Lobo's back. You see that? Is it going to focus? There we go. Yeah, Lobo's back. You know that second miniseries that came out. Simon Bosley got supposedly in a little trouble because he hit a penis in the back of Lobo's arm, where that's an actual muscle. So yeah, we have a little, and it even has a dog in here, man. It even has Lobo's dog. I just saw it. Yeah, Lobo had a. People forget that Simon Bosley added a. I don't know. I think it was a bulldog, maybe a British bulldog to it. So even Dirty Wolf, not Lobo, even has a dog. So yeah, I'm actually going to read this tonight. I have that out, and yeah, this probably is now. I don't know. This is probably like the fifth Deadpool comic that I'm keeping, um, just to get a kick out of it and stuff. Right? I got a big kick out of that. There we go. All right, Comic Crack and Tim are reuniting. Great to see each other. You guys talk to each other. Paolo, I like Deadpool before Joe Kelly made him humorous. The whole point of Deadpool was that he thought he was funny, but nobody else did. My interpretation, I told people my brother still has it. My brother, who was 4 years younger than I, he had his finger on the pulse of the future. I mean, he got the first. He was right there with Rob Liefeld with Hawk and Dove, and first appearance of Cable, and the first appearance of Deadpool. I also had the first appearance of Deadpool in that run of New Mutants because it was part of a crossover there for a little bit. Anyway, I was more of a Jim Lee guy on the X-Men, you know what I mean? But I got these books because they tied in and crossed over and stuff. I did not have the first appearance of Cable, but I had the first appearance of Deadpool, and I immediately caught what was going on. It was like I remember thinking that it was the Terminator, Deathstroke, the Terminator. Anyway, I caught that. I was like, what? Even when I heard the name Wade at some point, I don't know. Anyway, but I caught on real quick that this was highly Perez influenced. I thought it was going to be an influence, but anyway, I caught that it was Deathstroke, but I thought it was like Spider-Man. I thought it was Deathstroke meets Spider-Man, the red costume, the red mask, and the way he wouldn't shut up. I was like, he runs his mouth the way Peter Parker runs his mouth on villains. That was my take on Deadpool when he came out. I had no idea he's going to be huge, and stuff like that, right? Now, the other thing that I bought here, guys, is this was for fun, and I'm actually probably going to do this. I'm actually thinking about doing a video of this, right? But we have at Ollie's, they had this for sale. This was just sitting there hanging with the normal comics that Ollie's Outlet has, right? And I couldn't believe this, right? But it's sticker puzzles based on actual Silver Age comics, right? So basically, in the back of it, you have a page of stickers, and those need to be arranged to make the cover that you see. And this is all that they give you. You're supposed to fit the stickers into these partially lined shapes and stuff, right? They give you a hint on who it is, right? So yeah, there's several of those, and I think it's kind of fun. I'm digging the artwork. I love stuff like this, right? So I'm probably going to end up doing those, and it's probably not going to be something that I put up and try to keep mint. I'm probably going to end up doing that. What was funny is when I bought that, my wife looked at me and said, "Are you actually going to do it, or are you just going to put it up on the shelf?" Which cracked me up. I'm like, I'm even doing her neck thing, right? And that was pretty cool. So, guys, that's the new stuff that I got, right? And I'm very happy with it. Like I said, I'm really enjoying some light reading right now, and I'm going to show you why with some of the stuff I've been writing. Because for a lot of us, it is Christmas time. It is busy. We're getting a lot of things done. I have to work to do a little bit more at work, so I'm prepared when I get some time off for Christmas. I'm looking forward to that time. Spending with my family. So these are some of the things that I've had on my shelf that I've been reading for light reading. I'm going to see what you think, right? Now, these are books I've shown in the past, or I'm finally reading because I have the complete miniseries and stuff, right? So back in the days, this is from '87, I do believe, but Dr. Fate ended up getting his own 4-issue miniseries, right? Now, at the time, this is when the Justice League took off, the funny ha book, right? Well, this isn't funny. This is where Dr. Fate actually is. It gets into the law of order, the Lords of Order, Lords of Chaos. There is some little bit of horror in this, right? Not Vertigo horror, but there's some stuff in here, right? That really surprised me. It seems like Heath Giffen was everywhere at this time, despite the fact that he was dealing with some allegations of plagiarism off of a French artist, I do believe. And I think this is where his particular style comes from, that who's influenced by, right? So I've read this. It's a quick read. Like I said, it's not funny. Dr. Fate had appeared in Justice League for a few issues, fought the Gray Man, la la la. But then he kind of takes off and he does this stuff. And I feel like this did lead into the J.M. DeMante's run of it's a celebrated run. It's just recently has been collected into its own omnibus, or a DC's Finest run. And I have like 22 of the 25 issues I believe he did, but this led into another Dr. Fate series, I feel like. And I swear I feel like there was something in between this, right? So if you get these for $1 a piece, and Giffen, his art, I think they're worth reading. I read those and it didn't feel like work. That's the best way to put it. And there's some very cool visuals in there. You may need to read it twice to catch the actual plot. They're very vague, but what are you going to do? That's good stuff. Now, for you Marvel guys who want to hear a little bit of magic that way, right? The Dr. Fate, I go back before I move on. Dr. Fate and All-Star Squadron all day long. I know I saw probably a reprint here or there in the Justice League. I probably saw some JSA crossover from the Stepdads collection. I'm sure I ran across Dr. Fate, but it was with Roy Thomas, and specifically the Jerry Ordway issues. And I do have the McFarlane issue that I bought off the rack that tells his origin and stuff like that. But it was the '40s version by Roy Thomas of where I picked up on Dr. Fate, if you will. Right. So yeah, Dr. Fate, I'd been there for a while. Starman. It's probably why I have an affinity for all those '40s characters. Right. But anyway, so for you guys that are, more of the Marvel type, if we want to get into magic, this is the 4-issue series, okay, of Elenia, who is in limbo. And this takes place between two panels in X-Men. I want to say it's like X-Men 180 or something, right? So basically what happened in the comics that Claremont had written was that there was some magic tomfoolery going on. We saw an evil version of like Nightcrawler floating around in an issue. Velasco is up to some things. We get some tomfoolery. This in case you don't know who this character is, right? This picks up after Kazar. Some things happen with Belasco in Kazar's own series. I have a whole run of that, and I cannot get through it. But anyway, Belasco's popped up. We see this little evil version of Nightcrawler flopping around. Wolverine's chasing him down, and some things happen. And all of a sudden, Elenia, a little 4 or 5 year old Elenia there, ends up like walking through a door or something, disappearing through a portal or something. And they reach in as soon as they can and they pull her out. But when they pull her out, she's like 13 now, right? So in a second, in just a few seconds, she aged years. And it turned out she was trapped in limbo with Belasco and these alternate versions of Shadowcat, Kitty, and Storm, and Nightcrawler. And this has the fantastic artwork of one John Buscema, and I want to say Tom Palmer was doing the inks, right? So this is a fascinating read. That was an offshoot of X-Men, of course, and it actually happened not between issues, between panels. And this is when this was still fresh and new, new. There's no nudity in it. Fresh and new, and it was still weird to see characters who were firmly in a team book that felt weird when they would go out and try to be solo, right? Because you'd read about them stuff, right? So this was in the early days of the miniseries coming out, right? And I absolutely love this cover. I love this cover. I mean, it feels more like a Brett Blevins than a Buscema, but I'm sure it's Buscema. Now, one of the things I also want to show you is they were having some fun here, right? Now, check out these corner panels. I really wish Marvel would come back with the corner panels. Okay. So look at that one. The evolution of magic is on the corner panels. I absolutely love that as she grows up. Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Very, very subtle things. I mean, a lot of fun was being had back then. And I don't want to say this was experimental, man, but like Claremont just goes off in this. A lot of words and stuff, right? I'm still working my way through that series. I flipped through the whole thing. You know what I mean? I flipped through the whole thing just to say, am I going to really read this all the way through back to front, or can I get the gist all the way through? So that is very cool. And it's very nostalgic. I want to say it was 83 and that came out. Yeah, 83. 83 was a very magical time for me. I was a very, very happy kid in 83. 84 was pretty bad, but 83. This was also the time that I was reading Batman the Outsiders, guys. That shows you what I was reading. Legion of Superheroes, Batman the Outsiders, avoiding Teen Titans, and anything X-Men like the plague at the time, right? The other thing I'm reading, I showed this about a month ago, one of these issues. I think it's that one right there. But I finally, one of the things I'm kind of building on, one of my favorite series, one that I will not push on people unless you already a fan of the pulps and stuff, right? Is the Joe Kubert run at DC of Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, and Korak. Korak is actually probably a little bit better story wise, I think. I don't know, right? Anyway, but Joe Kubert, these books by Kubert should be passed out, especially the Origin of Tarzan, the first 4 issues that he did back in the 70s, if you will, should be passed out to artists to show how you can do storytelling and psychology and everything like that, right? So for $2, I was able to get the final issue I needed of these 100 pagers. It's probably that one right there. Because in the midst of these 100 pagers is one 4-part story that is an adaptation of Edgar Rice Burroughs' story. So this is on my stack to be read, even though I have flipped through all of these. That's how I know that there was a continuation of a story. So now I want to sit down to do these. Now, the problem with these books, and it's a wonderful problem, as you see, they were 100 pages. These things are full of reprints. You get some 50 stories of Chimp Detective, things like that. There is trivia there where you feel like you're watching a Wild Kingdom of the 70s there, where you get trivia on animals and things like that, right? These things are just fun. Okay, you know what I mean? Fun to read. The artwork, you study the artwork. The more you see Joe Kubert, the more you start getting Joe Kubert. You know what I mean? Like, I've dismissed him many times. First time I really paid attention to Joe Kubert, I paid attention to his and Nick Hardy's covers, but I didn't know it was Joe Kubert. and I didn't know Nick Cardy. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was them, but I just know that the best covers were, were like the ambush covers and things like that. Turns out, as I got older, it was Joe Kubert and Nick Cardy. Then we had the year in 1982. This is when I figured out that I was a comic book collector. As a little kid, you may have a moment where you just kind of look around and you give yourself a label. But I had the stepdad's comics in the room. I had been buying my own comics here and there, nothing like today, here and there. And then all of a sudden, there's the Justice League number 207 with that great George Perez cover of the crime syndicate busting out, coming after the Justice League, and the floating heads all around of the crime syndicate and the Justice League, Justice Society, Justice League, All Star Squadron, and it crossed over with All Star Squadron. But those had Joe Kubert covers instead of George Perez covers. And I'm like, ooh, ooh. And then I started really seeing them different as I got older to see how great they were. Talk about opposites, one's more sketchy and fluid, and you have George, who is like precision. You know what I mean? Great stuff there. Okay, so I'll be reading those, and I hope Crack is still here because he's going to know this. But every now and then, this is what I'm talking about with light reading and stuff, right? I will pull out a little concrete every now and then. I don't have a lot of concrete, but concrete to me takes me back. It makes me feel very nostalgic for the 80s and early 90s. It really does. And to me, this is what Dark Horse used to be all about. Concrete to me is one of those perfect characters. Paul Chadwick, who I had discovered on the Beauty and the Beast, Dazzler and Beast crossover 4-issue miniseries. I had the last issue forever in my collection. I think I got that when I was having my appendix took out, and many people brought me stacks of comics while I was in the hospital for days. And I think that was in there, right? And next thing I know, I'm seeing ads for Dark Horse years later, and I finally get a hold of the Killer Smile or something like that, a miniseries in 94, 93. And I had to go backwards through Dark Horse Comics Presents and things like that, right? And I finally started getting this. This isn't just a preachy series or about nature and lecture, you know what I'm saying, put it that way. But yeah, aliens come down and they trap a man's mind inside of a concrete body, and how's he going to live? He doesn't become a superhero. What do you do if this really happens to you? So it was kind of set in the real world with a supporting cast, but the genius of it is that he writes through analogy and a little bit of symbolism here and there, right? And I'm going by a lot of my memory here and stuff like that. But the story that fascinated me, and I don't know if it's in this one, was where he was a bodyguard. Somewhere I had this, he became a bodyguard for a rock star. And that's when I was like, oh, this man is a writer. This is a writer. This is too smart for comics, man. That kind of feel to it. Got a little pretentious there in the best ways possible because this was fantastic. So this has won many awards and has been celebrated many times. Had a 10-issue series, popped up in Dark Horse, had some mini series, and this is Land and Sea that reprints his first 2 adventures and stuff, right? So I have this out. Now, why am I reading this? Because it was on the shelf. For some reason, I went through and I'd already done some reading of Concrete a few years ago, got it out of my system, but for some reason, I kept this one out. So I want to get around to reading it because apparently I've sent a message to myself from the past of like, I left this out for a reason. You need to read it again. Okay, let me see what we have here. Yeah, Crack. Dark Horse is one of the companies that I always tried out if I find them in the back issue bins. They put out so much stuff, and I constantly find stuff I've never heard of. I'm finding out I like their early stuff. Hold on. Hopefully it's right here. Yeah. I'm finding out I'm liking no Dead Face here. Eddie Campbell stuff. The Eddie Campbell stuff from the early days of Dark Horse is what I'm finding out I like. Okay, guys. So keep this train moving because we all have things to do, I'm sure. But as you can see, I'm getting through this, but I've had this forever, right? Now I can reach up here on the shelf and pull it down, but I bought this when it came out, the original Simon Bisley, Alan Grant, John Wagner. Yeah, John Wagner, Batman and the Judge Dredd. I saw an article in Comic Scene that I'm like, I'm getting this book. It was a one shot. And Simon Bisley was fresh on the scene, and he did this fantastic, hyper violent, hyper realist, hyper, just everything to me is hyper was the word I used, right? I felt like I was looking at an artist who was birthed from the pages of heavy metal of the early 80s, you know what I mean? Maybe late 70s, I don't know, but he come out and he was talking in the comic scene interview, and I still had the comic scene from that year where he was like, I secretly drew and painted Gotham City as hell and Batman is secretly the devil to give it a tone and a feel. But then we're talking about Batman is, for justice, where Judge Law is Judge Dredd is the law. You know what I mean? Like these two are not going to get along and stuff, right? And I have that, and I loved it. The artwork was amazing. Little did I know it was the start of a trilogy. Okay, so I bought this at Ollie's a few years ago. Never got around to really getting past the first chapter. I have now gotten through part one, the first one shot, the second one shot, and I have started on the third one shot by Glenn Farby. I think that's his name. Good grief, get it together, Tim. Yeah, Glenn Farby, right? And that's painted stuff, right? So it turns out this Batman Judge Dredd collection, it was a trilogy to begin with, right? And I just totally missed the other two parts. Okay, so yeah, I'm halfway through that. Now, what I also found out now that I finally cracked this open to read, but it also has Judge Dredd meets Lobo. There was a Judge Dredd Lobo one shot. That had to have come out when I was in the military for me to miss that. All right. So here you go, guys. Yeah. Judge Dredd meets Lobo in this one. A lot of Lobo today, guys. A lot of Lobo, right? And if you did not get the first let me find a great page. You need to really pick up the Simon Bisley first one because they have homages in every issue that I've read so far. They've done an homage to when Judge Dredd punched Judge Death back in the day, drawn by Brian Boland. Right? Yeah. At the time where I had not read that, I was sort of like, oh, they did the Guy Gardner one punch from Justice League #5. That's how I was reading it. But this is where I became a fan of Judge Death. Judge Death is the villain in this. So much great stuff in this. Man, I just freaking love this stuff, right? And then the Glenn Farby pages come in. And Glenn Farby, for you guys, you probably know him from a bunch of Vertigo covers, a few Hellblazer with Garth Ennis, Preacher. I'm trying to think what else he has done off the top of my head. So yeah, I'm flying through this thing. I'm actually making sure I just do one chapter, one shot at a time, probably in two settings, right? I'm kind of taking my time with it as I read along, right? The other thing I'm reading, and I absolutely love this stuff, right? There are days where I just know that if I ever got rid of my collection, like I just got sick and I got sick of it and I got a shovel and I just started throwing things out, there's going to be a handful of things that I must keep. My Alan Moore, my Starman, my Jack Kirby, and probably the Hellboy, Mike Mignola, and anything else Dark Horse that he has done, right? But the Amazing Screw-On Head, he actually was thinking about, he did this character to take a break from doing all the Hellboy, and he wanted to do something different. So he did the Amazing Screw-On Head, which is a secret agent during the time of Abraham Lincoln, whose head can screw at the neck. It has threads, and he hops around and he can change bodies or something like that, right? He's actually thinking about doing it as a toy line in Sci-Fi Network, I believe. Ended up doing a cartoon adaptation of that story. This is also some other stuff that he has done besides that, right? Dealing with witches and stuff. He still ended up, like I said, taking a break. But he has included in this, was it an Eisner? He and his daughter, there is a Mike Mignola / Hellboy documentary I've been talking about, right? It's easy to find. It's all over the streaming sites. It's probably even on YouTube by now, but I found it on Tubi. No. I found it on Amazon Prime first, all right? And he was talking about how he picked up his daughter from school and she started telling him a story of how a snake was on top of a building and it was yelling at three shapes. So he slowed down and had her explain it to him. And it was part of a wizard. And he wanted to do a classic like Gandalf wizard hat. And his daughter was like, absolutely not. He needs to have a pointy hat. And she said that it was true. The Magician and the Snake, co-written written by Katie Mignola at age 7, and Mike Mignola, who was much, much older, ended up winning an Eisner. A 7-year old's first comic book story, she wins an award, and it's quite the thing. So basically, to impress this chimp of a king, the wizard makes three objects: a sphere, a triangle, and a square disappear. And his best friend, the snake, comes up and is like, "Great, you did it. He loves you." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to die. I used up too much magic. I went to I did too much of something." That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit aloof. There's some room in there for interpretation. And when those objects appear one day, I shall die. So the snake and the wizard, who are his best friends, they spent many years hanging out, flying kites, making the best of the time they had. And then one day, the three objects appeared, and there's the snake yelling at the objects to go away and how he hates them and stuff, right? And the magician died that day, which was just amazing. So we have the snake and the statue of a magician, and that won an Eisner, and I love that story. But I can't tell you why. There's just so much. It's so original in my head. I can't think of anything that the mind of a child. It came from a mind of a child who had yet had time to fill her head full of everything from wonderful literature to nonsense. You know what I mean? But that's all I can figure out. It came from the mind of a child. And that does end up tying into the last few pages of Hellboy, just to let you know, not to ruin anything, right? So every now and then, I would call it light reading, but the light reading will make you think, you know. So yeah, I'm reading that. I just kind of grabbed that off the shelf, right? Another thing that I've been trying to get through reading forever and a while, this has been on the shelf, is the What If of a What If, right? What If number 13 that I've shown on here before. It was one of my favorite comics as a kid. It came out in 1980, but Roy Thomas wrote it straight to where Conan ends up in New York in 1979. He has to get back. And he ends up meeting this redheaded cab driver chick. He ends up sleeping with her and doing some things, and he ends up getting back. Funnily enough, Roy Thomas, his girlfriend at the time's name was Danny, and he made her the cab driver, and he had his girlfriend at the time, who became his future wife, sleep with Conan in a story. Weird. But anyway, so that was like issue 13. Fast forward 30 issues, and we have a what if of a what if of like, what if Conan had remained stranded in the 20th century? That's this fantastic Sienkiewicz cover, right? So yeah, we're going to be getting around to finally reading that. It just keeps, I don't know, it just keeps getting lower and lower on the stack. I don't know. And we have three other things here to show. Cartoon is great. Hey, Tim Merritt, great to see. Yeah, and Early Dark Horse is great, fantastic. The other thing I'm reading, and it's so wild because I really should be reading more uh, of these other novels, paperbacks of Conan that I had, the El Sprague, the camp stuff, and everything like that, right? But he's in this one also. But I keep going back and reading the first volume of Conan, the early stuff, right? Red Nails. Red Nails is my absolute favorite Conan story, and I keep going back to read it. The story that I can't stand when it comes to Conan is Tower of the Elephant. I don't like the sci-fi approach to the Hyborian age and stuff, right? So yeah, the Frank Frazetta drawn cover, and this is a set of books. This was number one. This has the Hyborian Age Part 1, The Thing in the Crypt, The Tower of the Elephant, The Hall of the Dead, The God in the Bowl, Rogues in the House, Hand of Nergal, and The City of Skulls, right? So I'm getting away from the volume that I had that has red nails in it and trying to get more into this. So apparently I got a little confused here, guys. I just got through reading The Tower of the Elephant. That's sorry, guys. I'm in my 50s now. It happens. You're either going to keep up with me, or I'm just going to repeat myself over and over and over, and maybe eventually you'll understand me. I don't know. I don't know what happens. The other thing that I'm getting through I'm on the 13th volume of those should be, where are they at? Yeah, they're up here. I have a whole shelf of fables, right? Back in the day, where am I at in this? There's my bookmark. Almost fell out of the book. That'd be horrible, right? But over the years, I picked up a few of these, and then I don't know, maybe 2 years ago at a flea market, I ended up getting a ton of these for almost $1.25 a piece, right, at a flea market. So I'm slowly been getting through them. Now, I was with Fables from day one when it came out. All right. I had number one through about 44. And when they revealed who the adversary was, I rage sold the entire book, the entire series I had, probably on eBay. Right. And, because I was like done with it. Right. So now I'm more forgiving. Right. And I'm on volume 13. Fables, multi award winning series, one of the greatest series that does not get its due respect, in my opinion. Right? Fables is just wonderful. Fables is you can just buy Fables. There's a few offshoots, Ferris and Jack. I don't know what his series was called. It should be in this. Fables, Jack of Fables, The Literals, and Ferris. Okay, but yeah, this is a crossover, right? It had a few offshoots, but Fables is a book you can read from beginning to end, the first 150 issues. And when they got to the 150th issue, which was supposed to be the end of it, it ended up being the size of a trade all of its own. Okay, but this is just fantastic. The way they have these epic. We have characters that start out very small, in fairy tales, right? The Frog Prince in this is a redheaded dude with freckles, a big nose. His red hair is in his eyes, and he wears it's like Shaggy wearing a stupid hat backwards that has great big huge frog eyes on it. That's the thing, right? He's the janitor for many, many issues. And then he has this story on it where he wins a freaking war for them, and he has the light shining and gets a kingdom. It's just amazing, right? And everything that's going on. Bigby Wolf, the big bad wolf, Snow White, Rose Red, little boy Blue. You'll be sad of his fate and hope that he comes back. Everything. There's so much in these. These characters are so well thought out and fleshed out, and things like that. And they move forward, and there's always a direction with them. Mowgli, what they have done with Mowgli being in the real world is amazing. All right. I love when he pops up, right? Things like that, right? So yeah, we're getting through Fables, and we will be reading all of that. And the last thing is that this is highly overdue. I've had this trade forever. I have several issues of there's two miniseries, I think. Let me look at this. Jonah Hex Shadow West collects all three of Hex's legendary Vertigo adventures: Two Gun Mojo, Riders of the Worm, and Shadows West. I think I have number one of Two Gun Mojo and maybe a few other issues actually signed by Tim Truman. I have read those issues, but I have never sat down and read all three of them all the way through. I think I read the first miniseries in this all the way through, and it's time to get back to this, right? I'm probably going to have time, but look at this, is super thick. Okay, it's thick, and yeah, but this is great. This is where they brought him in into the 90s, and they took Jonah Hex. Tim Truman comes in there with his gritty, realistic style. He's actually like studied the Wild West before, so the weapons are accurate. Probably the hygiene is accurate. You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be little things in there that make it into the real world, and then they put a little HP Lovecraft horror in there, right? Zombies and gigantic worms and all sorts of things, right? Um, so yeah, I'm looking. I really dig when I don't usually like when they change the setting of a character, try to revamp him, but this worked. This worked. And not only did it work, it made sense. It was an improvement, in my opinion, right? Because everything is still canon. Nothing really changed. Okay, guys. Paolo seeing Conan in a pimp suit and hat with a pet cheetah, and that second what if made me break out laughing. That's what I'm trying to get at, because now what was great about that first what if issue number 13 is when he popped up on the streets of New York, somebody, this is before the movie, before the Conan movie, somebody across the street or something in New York was yelling, "Who is that? Arnold Schwarzenegger?" So when he ends up being dressed like that or something like that, I want to be seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed like that, right? So it's great stuff. So, guys, once again, thanks for hanging out with me. Make sure you have subscribed, hit the button. There will be more shows coming up, different topic videos. I'd kind of like to talk. I was going to get a hold of Paolo and a few other people, but I want to do a show where we talk about this phenomenon of the James Gunn hate in his movies, and people are still demanding the Snyderverse come back. And why would they want to do that? Because they're forgetting that some of those actors were horrible people, and a lot of time's gone by. So I'd kind of like maybe want to have a show like that pop up. Like I said, I've already felt around on some of my Christmas presents. There's definitely a book or two up there, so there may be a Christmas haul video. And yeah, man, like I said, with winter being what it is, there I could pop up at any time. I'm trying to be consistent. So anyway, thanks for everybody popped up in here. I may still do some Sunday mornings. I'm kind of digging the afternoon with everybody that pops up here. So thanks for John, Phantom Blot, Paolo, Comic Crack, Tim Merritt. Afro's SF didn't show up. All the other people that showed up in there. You guys have a Merry Christmas. Subscribe, hit the button, like, share, leave comments in the future, and be excellent to each other. Later, guys.